Hey guys, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install the REDARC Tow-Pro Liberty brake controller here on our 2016 Chevy Silverado 1500. So if you recently bought a dump trailer, utility trailer, or maybe you got a new camper and you found out that your trailer and camper have brakes on it, you're going to need to be able to actuate that with your tow vehicle. If your tow vehicle did not come with a factory brake controller and you're looking to install one, but you just don't want to deal with a big bulky machine that most brake controllers are, then the REDARC Liberty is going to be the one for you. As you can see right here, we have it already installed. It's just a tiny little knob, looks almost like it came straight from the factory. So in the event of trailer sway or having to quickly step on the brakes, anything like that, typically you're kind of in a panicked situation. You may not be thinking as clearly, you got your adrenaline rushing, so trying to reach down and hit a button down here on your brake controller can be kind of a hassle. So that's why having this REDARC Tow-Pro Liberty with the little control knob just right here makes it super easy, because I'm only having to go a couple inches from my wheel and just press my knob in so that we can get our trailer brakes activated. Another nice thing about this is that it's just an easy to use dial. Simply turn clockwise to adjust the gain up to the full 10, or counterclockwise to drop it back down all the way to 0, which is going to give you 0 braking power, which honestly just gives you a way nicer feel and ease of use versus some of the other brake controllers where you might have a certain code or something like that, or you're just looking at dots. This just gives you a much more factory look, gives you easy to read dial that just makes overall towing much better. So another indicator besides just these numbers is just the color itself. If you're down lower on your gain here and you press in, it's giving you kind of like a pinkish purple color. But as we start going up, we're going to start seeing it get redder and redder as we get up to our max. So that's how you know, just even with the indicator, say you're traveling in the dark and you just can't really see the numbers on there, you can easily tell where your gain's at just based on the color of the LED indicator. So another great feature with this brake controller is that once it senses that your vehicle brakes have been on for 3 seconds or longer, it's going to actually apply the brakes on your trailer. And this is really going to come in handy when you're driving up a hill. Say you're going to a certain campsite where you're kind of going through the mountains or something like that, and you just are stuck in traffic. Maybe there's a downed tree or something in the way, and you're sitting on a hill and you're kind of angled up or angled down, and you're putting all that weight just on your brakes of your vehicle instead. This is going to kind of help by keeping the brakes on your trailer stiff and keeping that trailer from lurching either forward or backwards when you're stuck on that hill. One other thing that I want to show you is just if you are in the need of ever having to do a manual override and just take some of that sway out of your trailer whenever you're going down the highway, you can also go ahead and manually press, and you can feel that click on and kind of tug us back as we're going, and that's what's going to click on your brakes without actually hitting the brakes on your vehicle. So one of the first things you're going to want to do when installing your REDARC Tow-Pro Liberty is just kind of finding the right place for your controller to actually sit. Typically with your regular brake controllers, you're going to have this big clunky box that's going to typically be kind of right around this area of your dash. You're going to hit your knees on it. Just kind of overall going to be in the way even when you're not towing anything, whereas this is just a very, very small little dial. That's all you're actually going to see. This black part back here is actually going to be hidden inside of your dash. So that's what makes this stand out versus the rest. Typically on your Silverados, you'll see your factory brake controller kind of up in this area. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to pop off our dash here and then get behind here and just kind of see if we have enough room for this to sit there. That might not be the case for your model, but if worse comes to worse, you can always put it down on the bottom portion of your dash where there's a lot more open space. Today, I just want to make sure that I can stick it up here, make it look nice, give it more of a factory look versus cutting holes in down in the bottom of our dash. So one thing when you're considering where to place your controller is the length of your cord. You're only going to have roughly like a 2.5 foot cord here. So you got to kind of also plan that as well, because this is going to connect between the actual Tow-Pro brake controller and our control knob. So to start, we're going to pop off this side panel right here. you're going to want to use a trim panel tool, just a plastic pry bar. That way you don't mess up any of your dash here. Down towards the bottom, it's pretty open there, so you can kind of get your finger in and start to pop it out just a bit, and then you can stick in that trim tool. And you don't want to be pressing too hard. You don't want to take a chance at cracking the plastic here, but we're going to slowly go through and pop out our little clips, just like that, and we can remove our panel. So for our installation, we don't technically have to remove this piece right here, but we're going to just pull these bolts out just to make it easier for us, because I know that I'm going to be routing our wire down through here, and this just kind of sits in the way. So we'll go ahead and take that off now. Just going to be 2 little screws here. Now with that loose, we can kind of pull that out of the way, and we're going to go ahead and pop out our trim here. It's going to have the same kind of connectors that we had on our side piece, so we'll just pop that right out. So if you look at your piece right here, we've got a little bit of an opening down here, which is going to allow us to easily slide in our controller. And then on the front, we got plenty of space to drill our hole and have our little knob sit there without it interfering with anything else. And we've got this opening right here, which is going to run straight down through our dash and allow us to hook up to the actual brake controller itself. So I popped just the bottom of my trim back in place here. And I'm going to hold up our little ring that's going to come with your kit. This is what's going to sit up against the trim here, and then our controller knob is going to sit on top of that. So now that I got this kind of where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and just make a little mark. I'm using an 11/32 drill bit so that we can get our piece through. Just going to get that started just a bit, and then I'll pull this away so we don't damage it. And as we're going through, we want to be careful. We don't want to go too deep here and end up damaging anything behind our trim. So as you can see, there's also a second hole, and that's where our indicator light's going to come through. That's how we get that red, green, and blue lights to show up on our control knob. So I'm going to take a 5/32 drill bit, and I'm going to make a little hole right above that for that to sit in. Now that that's in, we can go ahead, just double check everything's fitting right. As you can see, that pops right in. On this little trim piece here, it's got a little edge sticking out so that it can sit flush inside of that. So that's the side that you're going to want. And we're going to want to have our hole sitting up top, because that little notch up top is actually going to be our indicator of what percentage we're at with our braking power. All right, so the little nut here that's actually going to clamp your controller up to your dash is just a little bit wider. So we're actually going to have to widen this hole up a bit. Just going to take a little bit bigger of a drill bit. Go ahead and see if our bit fits right in there. So we can go ahead and put our controller in place. Next, we'll stick on our little trim piece with that little portion that sticks out facing our dash so that it sits in that hole. And we can go ahead and put in our nut. We're just going to hand tighten this down. You don't need to go too crazy with it. You just want to make sure that this isn't going to be jiggling around at all. And the next step would be to turn our dial all the way counterclockwise. I'm going to get this set at 0. So that is our lowest power, and on our dial, we're going to find our 0. And we're going to place that with it facing that little nub right up top. So that way now we're starting out at 0, and as we turn our dial, we're going to increase in our number. So the wire that's going to connect our controller over to our main unit of the brake controller, it's going to come with a straight connector and a 90-degree. Just looking at this, we're not really going to be able to use the 90-degree because it's just going to sit there and it's going to bend too much right at the edge here. So I'm going to go ahead and put my straight connector in through here. If I can get it in place. Oh, there we go. And then I'm just going to push our wiring down through, following our other connectors here, just so we can get it down to where we're going to place our main body of our unit. So like I said earlier in this, when we were taking this apart, this is going to be really useful to get out of the way just so that you can get your hand down in this hole, start pushing your wiring through, help it get down to the bottom. So as you can see, we have our cable down here now. I kind of traced it through and I have it hung up on these other wires just to kind of keep it away from our brake. We have this panel here that we're gonna have to take off. There's gonna be one clip on this left side and then two on the right. The one on the left is a nightmare to get to just because there's all this in the way here. It's real hard just to get your fingers in there. So I have this trim tool right here. We're gonna stick this up here. Just pop that off. And then we can easily grab the ones on the right side. And pop them off. There we go, we can pull that off. And down in here, you can see where our factory hookup is going to be. Right up here in the left, under this other blue connector right here, there's a little 4-prong square piece right here where you can stick in your wiring harness adapter. So on our panel that we just removed, we're going to go ahead and mount the body of our main unit here. So I'm going to line this up how I want it, and then I'm just going to make some marks here. I don't want to actually scratch up the frame here of our mounting brackets. So just get my holes made. Now we can fully drill through. With our holes made, we can go ahead and set that back in place. And we're just going to run some zip ties through here. This is going to keep the main unit of our brake controller just tucked up out of the way so that we're not hitting it with our knees. And we can go put this back in the vehicle and start making our connections with our wiring. For that factory wiring harness, we're going to go ahead and place our connector in just like this. You're going to have that tab on the left side of it as you're pushing it in. Get that up in place. And then we're going to kind of push that wiring up because it's going to come out the top of our little panel here. And we're going to put that back up into place. And with that clicked in place, we can go ahead and kind of tuck our wiring over. And we're going to hook up our wiring harness to our brake controller, push that into place. And now we're going to take our controller wire and click that in as well. That's going to be on your right side, right up top here. And with that clicked in place, we can go ahead and kind of just tuck our wiring back up with all the rest of it. We don't want that hanging down and getting in the way and getting caught on anything. If you need to, if you have more open space or that wire's hanging down, just go ahead and take some zip ties, kind of bunch it up to something else. We don't want it near anything moving, like our brake pedal or anything like that, just because we don't want to accidentally step on it and have that interfere. So now with all of our wiring hooked up, we're going to go ahead and put our dash back together. Just pop that right back in place. And now we can go ahead and start calibrating out our brake controller. So as we're pulling through our parking lot, now we can see it is blinking at us. It's wanting us to calibrate. So we're just going to drive this around just a bit and keep doing some stops. REDARC recommends doing this at least 20 times. It can calibrate itself beforehand, but they state that it'll typically take about 20 times of doing it to actually have it fully calibrate. So right now I got the brakes set at 2. So we're just going to go ahead. I'm going to try and get up to 25, 30 miles per hour here. And then we'll put on our brakes, kind of come to a stop. And we'll just keep doing that over and over again until we stop having a green and blue flash and start having a solid blue light. So as you can see, we already have a solid blue indicator here, which means that our brakes have been calibrated. When I actually step on the brakes too, it's going to show up red, showing that the brakes are actually being activated. So we know that we're fully calibrated now. We really only had to do this about 4 or 5 times, but like I said, REDARC does recommend going up to at least 20. That way you have it fully calibrated. Well, I think that about does it for today's installation of the REDARC Tow-Pro Liberty brake controller here on our 2016 Chevy Silverado 1500. My name's Kevin. Thanks for watching.